Ladies and gentlemen, we present the Piddingtons. And once again, here is your commentator, Colin Wills.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are at the last broadcast of what must have been one of the most provocative series ever to come on the air. You know it simply as the Piddingtons, but I should like to tell you that when the Piddingtons first came to this country, the idea was to call the program To Make You Think. We didn't call it that, but that's what it has done. People have had all sorts of ideas about it, and most of them will admit, I think, that they're still completely baffled, and it's still one of the questions of the day. Well, this then is your last opportunity in their present series to decide for yourselves, and to help the Piddingtons tonight, we'll attempt in a brief a number of the tests they've done in previous broadcasts, but with some interesting differences. Now, we have as our judges tonight the editor of a well-known national weekly, Mr. Kingsley Martin, and Major Osmond Daltrey. As well as these judges, we have an especially enthusiastic audience, among them some ex-Changi prisoners who've asked to come along to see here in London the show they last saw when they and Piddington were fellow prisoners of war in Japanese hands. It's fitting then for me to hand over now to Major Osmond Daltrey, without whose help and encouragement Piddington's experiments might never have achieved a concrete shape, thus depriving Britain, incidentally, of a very keen controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, Major Osmond Daltrey.
Well, I must say that when I first encouraged Sidney Piddington and his friend Russell Braddon to work their early Changi experiments up into a public demonstration, I had no idea that they would lead to such terrifying results as this. I just thought of it as something that would so intrigue our fellow prisoners that it would help them to forget their unpleasant surroundings, and a Japanese jail is not a place to be recommended as a rest cure. But I had no idea that I was starting something that would end up on the BBC and arouse controversy in practically every home and newspaper in Britain. Anyhow, I should just like to say that I think it's a great achievement to have come from those days with the Japanese, not at all a nice race, really, to this. And I'm sure you will all join me when I say, God bless, and all the best for your future, Sidney and Leslie Piddington.
Thank you, Major Daltrey. And now, down to business with tonight's first test. Piddington is in the second soundproof studio with the judge, Kingsley Martin. Leslie Pope is here in the main studio, here on the platform beside me, in front of a large audience. She's blindfolded, although as far as I can tell, she may be able to see through the back of her head. The only contact that we here have with Piddington is through an attendant here in the studio who's listening on headphones. We shall hear nothing, but you at home will hear Piddington directly. So now, over to Piddington himself.
Thank you, Colin Wills. Mr. Kingsley Martin and I are in the second studio here with three members of our studio audience. They've come along to see that we behave ourselves, and we are well away from the main studio. Would you confirm that, Mr. Kingsley Martin?
Yes, we're well away from it.
Now, on the table here we have a list of songs selected by our pianist tonight, Bill Williams, and a number of photographs of film stars selected by artist Ronald Searle. We also have the 5 diagrams specially designed for tests of this kind by Professor Ryan. That is a cross, a circle, 3 wavy lines, a square and a star. In other words, we are going to combine the transmission of tunes, images and lines into one test. I'm going to ask Judge Mr. Kingsley Martin in a moment to pick any one of those he likes, a song, a film star or a diagram. He will tell you, the listeners, what he has chosen, and the studio attendant in the main studio, where Leslie is, will hear the judge's voice through his headphones. He will then hold up a placard so that the studio audience can see what has been chosen. Leslie, being blindfolded and with her back to the placard, will not, of course, see this placard. Now, on the sound of the gong, we hope that Leslie will, if it's a tune, ask Bill Williams to play a few bars for you. If it's a film star, she will name the film star, or if it's a diagram, she will describe the diagram. Is that all clear? And now, Mr. Kingsley Martin, would you please make your choice and tell our listening audience what you've chosen?
Well, I shall choose a very handsome portrait of Mr. John Mills, the film star.
I think it's a film star, a man, John Mills.
And now would you, sir, as a member of our studio audience who's come into this second studio, make a second choice. You can choose a song, a film star, or a diagram. Just whatever you want.
Well, I'm going to use a diagram.
Just take the diagram out and tell the listening audience what you've chosen.
The diagram is a black square.
I think it's a diagram. Is the square?
And now I want to do something a little different. I want you, sir, just to make your choice. Show me, but say nothing. I shall say nothing, no word of any kind to studio attendants, studio audience, listeners, or between ourselves in the studio here. After you make your choice, there will be complete silence, and I'll ask for the gong to be sounded 10 seconds after I've stopped talking. Would you make your choice now?
A song? Will you play On My Return? Will you cross back to check if that's right, please?
And now, would the engineer please put this through to the main studio as well as to the listening audience at home? And now, Mr. Kingsley Martin, what in fact was chosen?
On My Return.
Thank you very much.
Well, they've done it again. 2 different rooms, choice of subject by an independent person. No one could possibly have known what that subject was except those in the soundproof studio, and not a word spoken by or to anyone after the choice was made. Well, the Piddingtons are certainly hammering nails into the coffin of a great deal of criticism. But here, coming back into the studio now, will be Piddington himself, who's going to come back here and carry on with his next test. And here he comes, up through the main studio now. He's coming up onto the platform to take over, so over to Piddington.
Thank you, Colin Wills, and thanks, Major Daltrey, for your pleasant few words at the beginning of this broadcast. I don't know what we would have done without you in the camp.
Well, now, Piddington, what comes next?
We thought that this last broadcast would hardly be complete as a cavalcade of our previous test if we didn't give you all just one more chance of beating Leslie to the gun in a test. So here you are, a quick transmission of one of 5 songs. I will just ask our pianist to play a few bars of each for you. Oh, by the way, our pianist, Bill Williams, is yet another graduate from a Changi prison camp. It's very nice to have you with us, Bill.
Thank you, Sidney.
And now, here are the 5 songs, and they include 2 songs that Bill actually composed in the prison camp. Red Roses. And On My Return. Faraway Places. Sunday in London. 12th Street Rag. Thank you, Bill. And now, Major Daughtry, as our other judge, I want you to come up to the platform here and select 2 tunes. Leslie is still blindfold, and she will wait just a few seconds before giving her answer, and I want you to see at home if you can receive the tune before she gives it out.
Yes, Leslie is still blindfold from the first test, and in any case she's standing with her back to Piddington and the blackboard. Major Daughtry is now ready to mark his tune. In a second you'll hear the chalk on the blackboard as he makes his choice.
Now, don't make your choice until I stop talking. If Leslie receives the impression of the tune that you mark, she will ask our guest pianist, Bill Williams, to play it. Then, as soon as Leslie receives that, I'm going to ask you to mark another one. Would you please make your first choice?
Would you play Sunday in London?
Yes, and that was correct. And now one more, just a final one after I've stopped talking.
Would you play Faraway Places?
Quite right, Leslie. Quite right.
Thank you.
I wonder how you all got on at home with that. And talking of home, Piddington has a letter from a home listener that he'd like to read to you.
That's quite right. It's one of the friendliest and most ingenious we've received, and it came only yesterday. Here it is. We have a theory to offer. Mr. Piddington has a Morse transmitter concealed in a tooth, or disguised as a tooth. Leslie has a receiver likewise disguised in her mouth. Mr. Piddington transmits to Leslie by tapping with his tongue or his teeth in Morse code. Leslie's receiver reacts by throbbing and pulsating. This is our theory. And while we're on this theory, what about that other one, Colin?
Oh, that one, yes. Yes, tell him about that one.
That was the one in which someone said that the way to do this particular test of the line from the book was to write the line to be transmitted on a card in one's pocket while it was being read out. You see, it's very simple. And now, Colin Wills, do you recall the situation at the time of the test with the books last week?
Yes, I do. Mr. Ernest Dudley was out of the studio with Leslie. You were standing at this centre table here, next to me, and facing Sir Herbert Dunico and Mr. Fabian, who were about, well, as we are now, about 2 feet away from you.
And do you remember, what was I doing with my hands? Were they in my pockets?
No, they certainly were not in your pockets. I remember distinctly that, as always, you were holding your script in your left hand and, well, gesticulating somewhat with your right hand, as you always do.
Are you quite sure, then, that I wasn't writing on any cards in my pocket?
Well, not with either of your hands.
Then I could not have written the line at that time.
No, I'm absolutely sure you couldn't.
Now, later on, while I collected objects from the audience, is it or is it not a fact that in one hand I held a packet in which I collected those objects offered, and with the other I acknowledged people calling me, made a sign to you if I wanted to speak, and frequently held a hand microphone?
Yes, I do remember that distinctly because I was watching you closely. I was commenting on what was going on.
Then could I, in your opinion, and you were watching me throughout to give your commentary, have written on a card at that time?
No, I'm absolutely certain that you couldn't have done.
Well, I think that clears up that little matter.
I think it might.
Thank you.
And now, shall we get on with the next test? Piddington?
Well, now, tonight we're going to repeat a test which we did with Dirk Bogarde in the second broadcast. That was a test in which Leslie was asked to locate somebody in the studio audience chosen by Dirk Bogarde after she came back. Now, first of all, would 2 or 3 people from the studio audience take Leslie outside? Just anybody at all like to come forward? One here and one over there. Thanks very much. Now, your job is to take her outside, the 2 people, and make sure that she hears or sees nothing that goes on in here.
Now, 2 gentlemen have come forward who are now taking Leslie out of the studio towards the soundproof door at the back. They have gone out with her, and the door is just about to close. When it has, they'll be completely separated from this studio. Now, the first door is closed, the attendant's coming in, and the second door is closed.
This is just the old parlour game of concentration. We are going to make a slight variation tonight to make it more interesting. Mr. Kingsley Martin will be asked to pick any member of the audience for Leslie to locate, but as well as that, that person will then be asked to name any number between 1 and 100, which she wishes Leslie to receive. Leslie, on her return, therefore, must first locate the person chosen by the judge and then receive the number chosen by that person. Now, Mr. Martin, would you do that, please?
Would you just tell whom you're choosing so the audience knows?
Yes. I should like to choose the lady with the fair hair sitting on the second lady from the gangway in the 4th row on the left-hand side.
That is the lady in the second place from in the 4th row on the left-hand side of the gangway. And this lady is standing up. She has, as Mr. Kingsley Martin observed, fair hair. She's dressed in a floral dress with a certain amount of cyclamen and grey and blue in it as far as I can see from here. She seems to be wearing a necklet of tiny pearls.
And now from...
Is that correct, Mr. Kingsley Martin?
And now from where...
I just give.
Right. And now from where you stand in the audience there, that's Mr. Kingsley Martin's victim, would you say into the travelling microphone a number between 1 and 100 that you want Leslie to try and receive when she comes back?
Don't know. 1.
Number 1. That's all, right. Now, that is, Leslie will come back, first of all, try and locate the person, and then she'll try and pick up number 1. Now, Mr. Martin, will you take me behind the screen in the studio on the far side, and Major Daltrey, will you ask for Leslie to be recalled?
Well, now, Mr. Kingsley Martin is taking Piddington down off the stage, and in behind the little dark screen where he is completely concealed from the audience and from the rest of this studio, at Major Daltrey's signal, Leslie is coming into this studio, accompanied by the 2 members of the audience who took her out. And just before they return to their places, would you say, sir, into the microphone, if you could see or hear anything which went on in here?
Absolutely nothing at all.
Thank you very much.
Well, now, will everyone please concentrate on what the person looks like who was chosen and roughly where he or she is sitting.
Now, Leslie is going down from the platform, down 2 steps into the aisle between the 2 blocks of the audience here. She's being followed by an engineer with a hand microphone. She's walking straight ahead. She's turning, she stopped, she's turning slightly to the left. She's going on. She's still looking a little bit to the left. She's now at the 3rd row. She's now at the 4th row. She's going on slightly. She's still turning to the left. She's hesitating. She's stopped. She's going along into the 4th row. So she's just looking along that way. And the engineer's still standing beside her. Leslie's concentrating, her hand to her head. She's going along the 4th row to the left. Standing now a little way along the row. Microphone beside her.
somewhere just here. Is it you?
No.
Is it somewhere just here? I think I'm stumped. I'll try just a bit longer.
Come out into the eyes again. Standing there. In the same place. Moving back towards the same road. Looking, standing still. Hands clasped.
I'm sorry. I think I'm somewhere in the vicinity, but I just don't know exactly who. Could you tell me?
You're in the right position, Leslie.
Well, I'm not asking for hints. I'm giving up, really. I won't try after now. Am I in the right position? Just here? Oh, thank you very much. Just next to you.
Well, Leslie had reached the right row, and when she asked me, I told her she was in the right position because I knew that she'd given up. She was standing very close to the lady who was, in fact, chosen.
Well, now, will everyone please concentrate on the number that was chosen? One.
And now into the final test. And here's Piddington to tell you about it.
Well, for this test, I thought we might just try and show you why we never believe in playing poker with our friends.
Well, I can imagine what's coming from that, but fire ahead.
Now, Mr. Martin, you are here on the microphone, and would you come up to judge number 2, Major Daltrey? Now, you have, Mr. Martin, a new pack of cards which was given to you by the producer when you came this evening.
That's right. You want me to open them?
Just before you do, I would like 2 people from the studio audience to take Leslie behind the screen on the far side of the platform, and while you're behind there, I want you to blindfold her.
Will someone come up?
Just 2 people, 2 in the front row here. They are all back here. 1 and just behind you there. Now, 2 people have just gone behind, and they are going to blindfold Leslie while she's behind that screen. Now, I want you to tear off the seal from the cards.
Try and do it so that it's audible. Right.
And take out the cards, and take out the joker if it's there, and if there are any blanks.
Very bad-handed opening cards.
And he's been asked to take out the jokers.
Right. Now, I want you to shuffle the cards, mixing them up just any way at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to ask you in a moment to deal a poker hand. That is just 5 cards. Shuffling them again. Right. Now, I want you to deal these cards down onto the table so no one can see, not even you or I, what you're dealing.
Now?
Yes, deal them now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now, Major Daltrey, without looking at them or letting anyone see them, would you take the hand of 5 cards and put it out of sight, completely out of sight?
I'll put it in my pocket.
And now, Mr. Kingsley Martin has put the rest of the cards in his pocket, so everything is out of sight. And would you just take the blanks and the joker and put those out of sight too? Now, those are all out of sight, and I want you to have Leslie brought back to the far microphone. I will go with Major Daltrey over to the one on the opposite side of the platform. I want you to make quite sure as she comes back she hasn't any chance of seeing anything which is important, even if she could see through the blindfold which is now being put on.
Well, now, Piddington and Major Daltrey have gone over to the other side of the stage near the blackboard, and Leslie is being brought back in her blindfold. She's still blindfolded, and she's standing on the far side of the stage, blindfolded with her back to Piddington.
Now, I'm going to ask Major Daughtry, who has the cards concealed, to take them out and show them to me only when I've stopped talking. I shall then endeavour to transmit them to my wife. Are you ready?
Major Daughtry has taken out the cards. She's showing them to Piddington. And now it's up to you, Leslie.
A club. Seven of clubs. Seven. Another seven. Seven of clubs. And a seven of diamonds. Eight of clubs. A two of diamonds. And a diamond, court card, a queen of diamonds.
Would you, Major Daughtry, please tell our listeners and our studio audience what cards were in fact in the hand?
Well, it was a very bad poker hand. There was a pair of sevens, a seven of clubs and the seven of diamonds. There was the eight of clubs, the two of diamonds, and the queen of diamonds.
Thank you.
Well, remind me never to get into a poker school with you two. And I should just like to point out that at no time did Piddington touch the 5 cards or the pack, and that no one knew what the hand was, no one, until after Leslie had been recalled to the platform, and that from then onwards there was complete silence.
Well, time is nearly up, and just before it is, I would like to say to you all, thank you very much for having us. We started off this series in the hope that you would find enjoyment as entertainment, whatever else you thought about it. So, as long as you've enjoyed it, that's all we've asked. And now I think Leslie would like to say a few words too.
All I want to say was that Sydney and I hope to have the opportunity of meeting as many of you as possible while we're travelling around the country. It's been very nice working for you here, but it'd be much nicer to meet you in person. Good night.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Piddington. Thank you, our judges. And so to the end of the last broadcast in this series. And what better words could we close with than those of Piddington himself, who says,
There it is, you are the judge.
You've been listening to a program featuring the Piddingtons. The judges were Mr. Kingsley Martin and Major Osmond Daughtry. Your commentator was Colin Wills. The production was by Frederick Piffard.